What's up, folks? Happy Friday, everybody. My goodness gracious. It's good to be back. Let's indeed blame it on the rain. It is coming down outside, too. It's becoming the norm on Fridays, quite frankly, and I'm loving every minute of it. I was outside walking around in it, doing my rounds. It's end of the week. Doesn't matter. Plus, if you know me, if you listen to trivia questions before, you know I love nights like this when it is pouring down rain. Anywho, let's get right back to it. It's good to be back. I hope everybody's week was good. The answer to the previous trivia question from way back in last week was none other than the Blues Brothers. Good old Blues Brothers, Dan Aykroyd and John Belushi. Now, the Blues Brothers were, of course, a bluesy and soul band founded in 1978 by comedians Dan Aykroyd and the very famous John Belushi, who were both appearing as regulars on the comedy live show Saturday Night Live. As we all know the history there. I think they were part of the inaugural team, actually, in 78 when SNL launched. If my memory serves me correctly. They were either on the first or the second waves, but it was the result of simply kicking around various musical sketches on the show. It's a perfect example, quite frankly, of you take a sketch on a show like SNL with characters that become very popular and you expand on that and grow and materialize. And in the case of the Blues Brothers, it took off and became a national craze of sorts. These two actually, and the Blues Brothers band actually went international at one point. It even evolved into a pretty popular Hollywood movie by 1980, and I'll get into that just a little later on. The characters were known as Joliet, Jake, and Elwood Blues as the lead vocalist and harmonica player, respectively, and they both sang. So they were complete with donning identical black suits. If you've been under a rock and have never heard of the Blues Brothers, donning identical black suits with matching hats and sunglasses, that was their trademark style. And these two characters took off in popularity like crazy, folks. They were the talk of the town. The band, so-called band, was composed of well-known musicians who were initially SNL band members. Because remember, like I said, this all started as musical sketches on SNL. But then after they became very popular, they hired very well-known musicians. The movie, The Blues Brothers, from 1980, is based on the adventures of the Blues Brothers when Jake is paroled from prison, and he and his brother Elwood, played by Dan Aykroyd, set out on a quote-unquote mission from God. That was their catchphrase that they used throughout the whole movie. And this was to prevent foreclosure of the Roman Catholic orphanage in which they were raised. To do so, to accomplish this goal, they must reunite with R&B bands and organize a performance to earn the $5,000 needed to pay the orphanage's property tax bill. So there's an actual plot to the whole thing. It's kind of lost in the music and the characters of the Blues Brothers and their popularity. But there was a plot to the whole Blues Brothers movie from 1980. Now, along the way and in between all kinds of gigs for the band that they play, they get into a whole bunch of trouble with the cops, with Carrie Fisher, who plays Jake's ex-girlfriend, and all kinds of other groups who are trying to catch the two while they set out on a run, literally across the country. There's a famous mall scene where they're actually driving through the mall and they're destroying the whole thing. It's got a lot of adventure to it, that's for sure. Now, the Blues Brothers band and the characters got so popular that at one point they actually opened for the Grateful Dead. I did not know this, and I was into the Blues Brothers back in the late 70s, 1980. I did not realize this. This was something that you find when you research this kind of stuff. And this was at the Winterland Arena in San Francisco. I think it was the last show at that arena. And the Blues Brothers, Dan Aykroyd and John Belushi, were the opening act, and they gained further fame after spawning a Hollywood comedy film in 1980, like I was saying in reference before. The Blues Brothers movie had an incredible ensemble of real-life musicians. If you've never seen this movie before, you should definitely add it to your collection. It's an iconic film, really. Kind of a comedy of sorts, if you will, but it's just got some great, all-time great blues musicians: Aretha Franklin, James Brown, Cab Calloway, Ray Charles, John Lee Hooker. They all play kind of comedic roles, if you will, and cameo type of appearances. But it's a good movie, and there's all kinds of dance scenes and musical sketches, if you will, intertwined in the movie. It has it's very cool. Just a very cool movie to rent and add to your collection for sure. A couple of really cool geek factoids about the Blues Brothers and the Blues Brothers movie. There was a sequel to the 1980 movie called Blues Brothers 2000. Flop. Absolute failure at the box office. I don't even think it lasted a week in mentioning, quite frankly. It was horrible. God, horrible movie. It's one of those instances where you just should not attempt a sequel to a classic, iconic movie, especially if it's 20 years later. God, I remember getting dressed up on Halloween as the Blues Brothers one year. That's how popular they were with kids like me. The music and the band, the quote-unquote band, the Blues Brothers, still resonate with people to this day. And what I mean by that is when people hear the song Soul Man, I'm a soul man, that one of the most popular songs from their sketches and from the movie, there's a lot of people out there who still automatically and default to the mindset that Dan Aykroyd and John Belushi from that Blues Brothers band wrote the song. And that is simply not the case. They just made it very popular and put it on the map with their Blues Brothers characters. Belushi, of course, died of a drug overdose in 1982, shortly after he became popular with the Blues Brothers and the movie came out. And Dan Aykroyd went on to make multiple movies and is still very much around to this day. He still shows up every so often as Elwood Blues for charities and such, which is pretty cool. All right, folks, let's get to a brand new trivia question so we can get back out and play in the rain and get this Friday going so we can get through the Friday and get to a weekend. Here we go for April 27th and wrap up the month of April for that matter, too, folks. Let's get ready for May. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about, some summertime, flip-flop, shorts, trips to the beach, all that good stuff. Anywho, cold beer. Don't forget cold beer. Anywho, here's today's trivia question for April 27th. Check this out. This is a good trivia question. And all generations might know this. On this day in 1789, following a 3-week journey from Tahiti to the West Indies, Fletcher Christian and a group of other sailors set Captain William Bligh and another group of his supporters adrift in the open sea for a voyage that lasted over 3,600 miles. The whole ordeal historically became known as this. Good luck, folks. Think Marlon Brando, Mel Gibson, Clark Gable, Anthony Hopkins. Have a fabulous Friday, everybody. Love you guys. Thanks for all you do. And peace out.